So hi there, guys. James Osborne here. I'm here with Jamil Qureshi. Jamil's been a friend of the Recruitment Network now for a number of years. We worked with Jamil the first time about 2.5 years ago now. Jamil's a performance coach. He does spend a lot of time working in the world of sport as much as in the world of business. A really good guy, a lot of fun. And just a very quick one. Jamil and I we caught up online, I suppose, via Twitter, as most relationships tend to be these days. Where Jamil posted out a comment, which I really love, I've got written down here, about spending more time competing against your habits as opposed to competing against other competitors. And that really struck a real chord with me. As some of you know, I'm quite into my triathlons. I did my first Ironman last year. I love to mention that wherever I get the chance today. And one of the real quotes that comes back from the Ironman and from my training in the 50 was this whole concept around you versus you. So when I was doing the race, it's not focusing on me trying to compete against other competitors. I would have absolutely no chance being a slightly overweight middle-aged man. But it was about competing against myself, and I thought for myself from a mental, emotional, and physical point of view. So really interesting. And then Jamil came back with a story that he's got around some work that he's done with a golfer. So I thought I'd pass it over to Jamil, and Jamil, you can tell your golfing story.
Yeah, do you know, I think it's a really interesting concept, James, that, we're only really as good as, we think we are. And the problem that we have with success is that we often see success as a comparison, a comparative. So, we'll often compare ourselves to, someone we went to school with, someone who lives next door, someone in the office. And that's the problem with success, is that we're always measuring ourselves against someone else. When really success is about how much we maximize our own potential. And it's a really personal thing. So, I guess that, success is really the continued accomplishment of goals which are personal to the individual. So it's got to be personal to the individual, and it's got to be continually accomplished because I guess at this success bit, and people often say that success is not a destination, it's a journey. I think it's really true. I work with people who have targets and objectives, people have goals, and they're successful. Targets and goals will make you successful. But having a purpose is completely different. That purpose, that reason for being, reason for getting out of bed in the morning, seems to drive people much further. And that's a really personal thing. I always say that purpose is never achieved on a daily basis. This is why Tiger Woods keeps working. It's why Warren Buffett keeps working. It's why Richard Branson keeps working. It's because it's never achieved. It's attained on a daily basis. They're constantly striving to be better than what they were, to achieve more than what they have done. And I think that the story that I alluded to when you and I connected was the one with Robert Carlson. I worked with Robert Carlson a few years back now, Swedish golfer, very good golfer, Ryder Cup player. Always did very well. I think his most successful season was 2007, 2008. And one of the things which he did was that he found himself getting caught up in the metrics. We do it in business, we do it in sport. We define ourselves by the numbers. And so became really focused, really narrow in regard to how he saw success. It was all about achieving numbers. So one of the things which we did was that he put a piece of paper in his pocket, played a whole season with this piece of paper in his pocket, and it said beat Robert Carlson. And that was the only thing that he had on his piece of paper, was beat Robert Carlson. And the goal basically was to have a better day than what he thought he was going to have. If you do that, and it's an arbitrary measure, I mean, in the evening, decide whether you have or not. Just have a better day than what you think you were going to have. Sometimes we wake up we got toothache, we didn't sleep well, the air conditioning in the hotel room's awful, we're tired, whatever it might be. If you perform better than you think that you are going to, and it's a binary thing, it's a yes or no. If you perform better than you think you're going to, then it's one mark to you. You're in the black. He spent a whole season doing that, moved away from the metrics and the numbers, and he found himself answering 2 questions every single night. So he had in his pocket beat Robert Carlson, and how he evaluated that was he asked himself 2 questions, which is what did I enjoy today and what did I learn today? So if he had a really, really bad day, awful day, or had one of the best days he's ever had, he would gain a consistency of mind by simply answering the questions. So instead of taking the emotional route of dissection, autopsy, or celebration, It was really just about what did I enjoy today and what did I learn today. Answered those two questions with an open-mindedness, evidentially understanding what it was, and navigated his way through to one of the best seasons he's ever had. And I think there's a real simple that way of working. We don't get caught up and distracted in who's doing what and how well and how badly. I think I guess we gain a better level of self-awareness and personal introspection over our ability to learn and enjoy things that we are doing on a daily basis. Almost come back to our original reason for being, understanding our purpose more so than our targets, objectives, what we're aiming for. I've used it with business people too, and it works, particularly in the complexity of business. And you'll know very well as a successful entrepreneur that it sometimes can be really difficult to plate spin. We're trying to make that figure work, trying to make that number work. We're trying to understand whether we're succeeding in this area by dissecting the profit and loss sheet. But in a way, we almost need to go back to being our natural selves, and doing what we are passionate about, understanding what we're enjoying and not enjoying, what we're learning and how fast we're learning. And I sometimes think that the clarity that we need is possibly in the simplicity of understanding ourselves in the context of business, more so than understanding the metrics that we're striving for.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. I love that. And the question I've got for you, Jamil, based on that, if you are basing your potential today moving forwards on what you think you could achieve personally from a purpose point of view, is there a potential risk that you are setting personal goals that are potentially mediocre as opposed to aspirational?
Well, I always say aim big, but I also think that, with success being a personal thing, we need to find what works for us. So when you run a triathlon, some people might see the rewards of winning. Some people might think, I can't wait to get to that finish point, can't wait to celebrate with a beer, whatever it might be. Or some people might see this great achievement as a result of many small achievements, and so therefore break it down into bite-sized chunks. Both people will achieve the same thing. They'll complete a triathlon, which is no mean feat, but they'll do it in different ways. So it's not right to necessarily aim big or to stay within our comfort zones in regard to our targets and aims. It's right to find what works for you. And I think that the problem that we have with our decision making is that we only understand our decisions retrospectively. So we think something is a good decision by understanding the result. We think something's a bad decision by understanding the result, the outcome. But we only know the outcome retrospectively. We need to understand whether the decisions that we are making, the process for making them, is optimizing our talent, not what the end result is. So we need to decide whether something is a good decision or a bad decision by understanding the intrinsic quality of our decision-making process. See, sometimes you make a decision not to go on the M25 today, and then you get caught up in traffic even worse. You say, it's a terrible decision. But you know what? It wasn't a terrible decision because you saw the news reports, you've got evidence of what happens at this time of year, it's bank holiday, whatever it might be. The decision was a great decision, the outcome just didn't work. And so we need to be careful in business and in sport and how we set our goals and targets. That we're not just trying to work out things by understanding what they achieve, but find out whether thinking big, thinking smaller, defining a different process, compartmentalizing results, finding different KPIs allows us to feel that we are achieving a sense of purpose and driving ourselves forwards in a way which is reflective of the potential that we have.
Fantastic. I definitely agree with that. And I think we're doing a lot of work at the moment with businesses leading up to the end of the year, calendar year, for around goal setting for next year, decision making, planning for next year. So I think that's really, really sound advice. Just to close off, it would be remiss of me not to mention the Rugby World Cup final coming up this weekend. As a stout rugby fan, an English rugby fan, do you think some of this stuff around sort of who you're competing, going back to the thing about competing against habits rather than competitors, do you think this is something that's been ringing true for maybe the England rugby team, who are having an absolute blinder of a Rugby World Cup so far and potentially going to go on to win, fingers crossed, this weekend?
Yeah, do you know what? There's probably a couple of things. Two things. One, belief system, what you believe is true, is incredibly important. It's a limiting factor in business. It's a limiting factor in sport. So there's got to be a belief that this World Cup can come home, and that they have the capability, the possibility, the opportunity, the talent to win. And so move away from those mental tram lines that, what we believe, how we believe things to be. And we need to move into a new space of new possibility and new opportunity. I also think the other thing is handling mistakes under pressure is really important in situations like this. The people who win, do you know what? Here's the thing. The people who win in business and in sport are not the people who make the least mistakes. They're the people who respond best to the mistakes that they make. And I bet you we see this on Saturday, that, there will be people who will be making mistakes, a team will make a mistake, but it's the comeback which is important. And you can often see in a game of football, game of rugby, game of cricket, where the momentum swings. And the momentum isn't necessarily, not always, because something great has happened. It's because something bad has happened and a team have come back or recovered or kept the momentum or kept an energy and enthusiasm to win the tournament or the game. So I think, particularly in pressure situations, it's not so much about not making mistakes. It's about responding well to them when they happen. So
Fantastic. Brilliant, good stuff. Well, we look forward to an England victory, no mistakes. Listen, Jamil, as always, mate, listen, great to catch up with you. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the rugby on the weekend. Jamil's going to be getting involved back with the TRN, the Recruitment Network, next year in 2020, which is fantastic. So we look forward to hearing more of your aspirational ideas and so on and so forth. Have a great weekend, Jamil. Great to catch up, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, James.
Cheers, thank you.